we are talking about people pleasing and what comes along with that and where it comes from and what we can do to heal it. So I see some people here in the chats have already been chiming in about their experiences. Appreciate that. If you're watching this on YouTube, I am doing a TikTok live, and so that's who I'm talking to in the comments. And remember to like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Okay, so people pleasing, what that can cause is masking, perfectionism, procrastination, overgiving of your time and energy. It can lead to unequal energy exchange relationships. So that might be like codependency or somebody like gaslighting or love bombing you. That's a lot of times empaths get in relationships with people where that's unequal energy exchange, because we're always giving and we have very compassionate hearts and we just want to love everybody, right? And some people take advantage of that. It can also lead to extreme burnout and exhaustion because we're just overextending ourselves constantly. Hey Carrie. So
okay, I found this on the web.
No, we don't need that. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so where is this coming from? So most of the time, this comes from childhood. This is us either dealing with abandonment issues or parents that held like too high of expectations of us, or were telling us that we were never enough, or sometimes we are having safety around us as a child, not just with like physical safety, but also like emotional abuse or mental abuse or things of that nature. So there's a lot of different dynamics that come into play here. Hello. So with the safety thing, so a lot of empaths and light workers that I find, you have had to learn how to shift other people's moods and how to regulate the frequencies in the room to keep yourself safe. Either because people like have really intense energy fields around you, they get really angry and frustrated, and it kind of makes you like retract. And so you have to kind of like build this chameleon personality around yourself in order so that person is okay with you, right? So this might look like a parent yelling at you constantly, so you make yourself very like meek or you learn how to speak to them a certain way. And it's not necessarily like manipulative behavior, it's more so, like I said, that safety trauma response of what do I need to do or say here so that I'm okay, right? But that also teaches you to mask, not just with your parents or guardians or siblings or whomever. Take that with you throughout life, right? And so how we see that affect us into adulthood is if you, let's say that you have a boss, right, and they're asking you to take on like extra work, and really you really don't have the time and energy for that. But as a child, what they're hearing is a parent yelling at them, even though that boss of yours isn't, or maybe they are, right? They have PTSD and you have emotions wrapped up with conflictive behavior or people asking you for things. And so your natural response is just to say yes and like overgive. Because if you don't, that means you're not safe. And so, sorry, I got caught off guard there in the comments. Yeah, we don't like icky feelings, so we try to fix them. Yeah, and because we're empaths, if somebody's upset too, like let's say that you don't have a parent or guardian when you're an inner child that's, you know, too much, we still feel very intensely into their energy fields. Like we can tell when something's off, or when they're frustrated, or when they're sad, or when they're angry, right? And so you feel into that and you want to shift their mood. You take it on as like your own personal responsibility. Hold on one second, I gotta get something. Okay, anyway, sorry about that. Okay. And so this can lead to this happening with other people in your friend dynamics as well. Like a friend that's asking you like for too many favors, right? And you keep giving, and it's because like your inner child within is, if I don't do this, then I'm not safe. So let's think about that feeling that you have when that's happening with like a friend with an unequal energy exchange. It's almost like a panicky energy that sets in, and it's like, oh, I gotta do this. Like there's this like really deep internal urge, and I've had that too, where it's like, I have to do this even though I don't want to. Let's see, this and that, yes. So abandonment, that's another big one. And when I say abandonment, I don't always mean physical abandonment. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. For saying I'm a good teacher. I don't always mean physical abandonment. If you aren't getting things that you need in childhood, like your needs met, that's abandonment. It can be attention. It can be encouragement, support. It can be basic like human necessities like food, water, shelter. Anything that you're not getting that you need, not just on a physical level, can cause abandonment issues. Right? And so that's where people pleasing comes in, because we're like, okay, if I don't do these things or meet this person's expectation, they are going to abandon me. And I see this a lot with clients. If they have had parents or guardians that do not give them what they need, they're like, how do I need to like mold my personality and persona so this person stays with me? Because having people around you is better than not. Right? Especially we see that with people that are like with narcissists or unequal energy exchanges. It's like, I'll take what I can get. And the problem with that is if we latch onto those type of relationships, and a lot of times those are like very codependent relationships, what happens is we have all these people around us who don't really know us. They know the mask that we have built. And sometimes we don't even realize that we're wearing a mask, because you get lost in the mask is what happens. And you forget like who you are at a very like deep core level. So they are seeing this like fake version, and when I say fake, it is you, but it's something that you're projecting to keep yourself safe, right? And so people will like you. They are resonating with the mask. That's why you feel lonely with those people. And I've had that too, where I've had relationships where I understand them at a very, very deep core level, but they weren't giving me that back. But it wasn't their fault, because I was presenting them with the mask of Brittany, right? And so that demasking, that's a really intense thing. I get that, right? But it's something that we have to do and help our inner children heal from. Otherwise, it just like perpetuates these cycles of having people around us that really aren't in alignment, right? And when we're talking about abandonment, a lot of us have very deep core wounds of being alone. Like that was a huge one of mine, of feeling alone, because that's how I felt when I was a child. Ooh, it's 11:11. That's how I felt as a child, because I had a lot of abandonment stuff and a lot of trauma that happened to me. And so I was like, that was my worst nightmare. It's just feeling like I was going to be perpetual alone. So I would have all these people around me that weren't really great for me, but at least it was better than nothing, right? And so what did I put here? Oh, feeling alone. Yes. The only person that can fill that void for you is yourself. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this experience that I had. So sometimes the universe will like kick your butt in gear when you keep like sweeping stuff under the rug. And so that was me. I was just like, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. And then I hit a breaking point eventually where I was like, I don't like anything in my reality. Like all these people aren't in resonance with me. Like all the things that I've gotten myself into, I don't really like these things, right? But at the same time, I was like, I don't even know who I am anymore. Like I was like real deep down into like an anxiety and depression hole. And the universe, me, okay, another higher self version of me, took everything away in my life. Just like stripped everything away. I literally just like had my son with me, and then that was it. Okay. Oh, sorry, I got a notification there. I just had my son with me, and that was it. And take us to church. I like that. I needed that though, because I kept on like not taking a look at my self-love. Like I was wrapping myself up in all of these different things to bypass falling in love with myself. And so took everything away so that I had to take a real deep internal dive into self and figure out like who I am, what I really want. And at the time, it sucked. And there's a lot of people that are going through that right now. And I understand that when it feels like you're out here by yourself. Sometimes that's necessary, because you got to rock with you harder than anybody else does. Because like, even with me, like I talk to like so many people on social media and like, you know, everywhere, like business. And like, I love receiving like compliments from people. Like I love that, right? Like that's a beautiful energy exchange. But if I don't believe that, and I used to not, like when people used to tell me things, it used to like go over my head, and I was like, okay, whatever. Okay. But if you don't receive that into your heart space and like know that about thyself, before anybody else is trying to give that to you, like, it's not going to hit home. You have to believe those things within yourself. And sometimes the people-pleasing thing is a way to bypass around loving self. It's like, let me do all these things for other people, and so that I prove my value to others, or if I wrap all my time and energy up into helping other people, then I don't have to take a look at what's going on in here. I lived that. And it was not a fun existence because I felt taken advantage of. I felt like I was a doormat. People were constantly like taking too much from me, right? And I just kept on getting in like narcissistic relationships and, you know, just like icky, yucky stuff. People will treat you however you let them treat you. And the hard truth that I had to learn was I was allowing that to happen. And I know not everybody's ready for that message. And not saying like this is not representative of like being in an abusive relationship. Okay, like a physically abusive relationship. Nope, that's nobody's fault. Nobody should be in that. But I was creating this reality and this existence by people pleasing and masking and not being authentic. Was it my fault? No. Because that's all I knew from childhood. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. But I experienced abandonment and trust issues and narcissistic people in my life. And so what that did was it put on these reality lenses. That's what I looked at or looked for in life. That's all I knew was to go after those things, because I had never seen like a healthy representation of what relationships are supposed to be or how I was supposed to love myself or like treat myself. And so that's a lot of us. It's not your fault that you people please. Okay. And people feel like really guilty and shameful over that, like when I'm talking to clients and stuff, and I'm like, listen, when we're people pleasing and feel abandonment and mistrust and feeling alone, it's not you. It's not adult conscious you. You are stuck in the consciousness of that inner child within you that never got what they received. And so that's why we keep getting in these behavioral patterns and these triggers and these cycles, because it's actually them inside. So let's take, if you're looking for like a romantic relationship, okay? So you have parents that were real nasty to each other and always yelling, and didn't create like a safe environment, and you're with them all the time because you're a child. If that's all you've seen as a representation of love, that's what you'll seek out in other people. Because that's like, how would you know to look for anything else, right? Or like, why would you know any difference? So that's where that like programming comes in. And so this is where we have to like take a pause and look back and start to detach from those past experiences and say, okay, hey Mitzi, what I'm doing right now is not a healthy behavior. Or these red flags that I'm going after within people is not serving me. What do I need to do to get out of this paradigm that I'm in? And that's when I had like a giant wake up call when I was like, this stuff is actually, good morning Christian, this stuff is actually coming from childhood. And when I started like working my way back and started like pinpointing where I learned these things, I was like, whoa. Because a lot of times we think it's our like adult conscious mind, and we're like living in the present right now, and we don't understand why we can't get out of these cycles. It's because it's not coming from right now. It's coming from that 5-year-old, 12-year-old, 15-year-old in you that experienced these things and then set your reality. And that's the lenses that you've been looking through ever since. So sometimes it's healing just to say, this is not me. This is childhood experiences that shaped my reality. Then we start to detach a little bit as the higher self, and you can start looking at things like a little bit more objectively there. Okay, I'm trying to keep up with the comments. I'm sorry. Sometimes I get to talking. Okay, so reiteration of relationships. This is what gets us. We want healthy, thriving, loving relationships, whether that's romantic or with friends or your soul tribe members or whatever, right? If you have only experienced hurt after hurt after hurt after hurt after hurt, then that's what your subconscious believes is your life. Like, oh, there's only like icky yucky people out here. Like, that's as good as it's gonna get. Because you just see the same thing happen over, like, it's solidifying that reality for you. And so if you don't know that there's some other reality out there, okay, one, you don't know what to work towards or what to even look for in another person. You're just like, oh, well, this is it. And I was in that cycle too. Like, I had a string of like relationships that I'm like, I look back now and, like, no offense to the younger Brittany, we love her. I was like, girl, why were you with this person? But it's because I wasn't in touch with myself and my heart space and my core, and I didn't love myself. I used to hate myself. I used to berate myself and treat myself like doo-doo. Okay? And when you do that, you pull in people that are like that too. So this is what I mean when, like, people pleasing, if you want to heal that, you have to go on like a really radical self-love journey, because you will pull in exactly the people that resonate with how you feel inside. If you feel, you know, like the world is awful, you will pull people in that also feel that way, and then it just reiterates your paradigm. And then the universe brings you more experiences to prove that to you in your subconscious. And so, like, if I, you know, when I used to talk horrible about myself, I would pull in other people that did that. And then we would just be in the icky yucky mess together, right? But there's this huge fear of, okay, if I stop hanging out with these people that I already have in my life that are either like narcissists or unequal energy exchanges or whatever, then that means that I'm going to be alone. And you probably will. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Like, some people go through like a really heavy dark night of the soul or tower moment where you have to like recalibrate. You have to learn how to be alone with your thoughts and alone with your emotions. Like, I cannot stress that enough. You have to become your very best friend. Like, you have to be so okay with yourself that if you're like, if I don't have anybody else around me, I'm fine. Like, I know that's super scary, and there was this time in my life where I could not be alone with my thoughts. Like, it was a nightmare. I would do anything I could to bypass around that and not feel my emotions. But the funny thing is that when you start becoming your best friends and spending time with yourself and figuring out what it is that you like and brings you joy and happiness, like, it's really like enjoyable. I love being by myself now. Like, I'm not saying I'm alone all the time, but like, I really, really enjoy being in my own energy field and hanging out with myself and my inner children. But that's a stark difference to when I was like way deep down in the anxiety and depression hole. But I was also pulling in people that were distractions. Like, victimization, okay, is like a real thing. I used to say, like, why does everybody treat me like shit? One, I was allowing that to happen, right? And I was using it as a distraction to justify, like, why my life was not the way I wanted it to be. I would just be like, well, they're this way and that and that and that and that and that, when in reality, it's because I wasn't taking a deep dive within myself. I love my alone time. Emotions are hard sometimes, though. They are. The more that you push them down, though, and kind of don't look at them, the louder they get and the more chaos that they cause, is what I have found in my experience. And you can really start to build like a beautiful relationship with your emotions too. Okay, another thing with people pleasing is sometimes that's a harder one to break because of the narratives that people have of us. So if you're on a spiritual awakening journey and you're changing who you are and how you show up in the world and how you react, right? Our family members, especially, this is really true for like holidays, our family members can zap us back into like old behavioral patterns and triggers and self-limiting beliefs and like low confidence and low self-esteem like very quickly, because they have a narrative of you. They have a story in their mind that they have built up, like, you are like this and you do this and you say this and blah 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 blah. But you have PTSD and emotions wrapped up with that person So when you're around them, it pulls you back into that childlike state of consciousness. It zaps you right back. And then you respond and react from that state of consciousness. So like when you go to, you know, like a family function, you want a spiritual awakening journey and you doing real good, okay? And you go and then you get like mega triggered, and then you come home and you're like, why did I act like that? That's because it wasn't you. It was that child consciousness that took over and said, I know how to respond to this. I've seen this before. I know what to do. Let me handle it. Okay? And then we're right back to where we started. Back in that behavioral pattern in the cycle. Not your fault, not their fault. That's just like how that neural networking like works, right? Okay, so that narratives thing. Nobody understands your journey but you. Like, you know where you're going, you know where you're headed, you know the internal work that you're doing. If somebody is not on a healing journey, they're not going to see you in that light. They're just like, they're absolutely not going to know what's going on with you. They're not going to understand you. They're going to be like, you're the same old person. Okay? You're the person that I've always known. When in reality, you're a whole different person now. Like, you, in a different reality altogether. Right? But you have to respond from that reality too. This is where inner child healing is so important, because when we really start to understand that it's our inner children that are getting triggered within us, it's a little bit easier to traverse these things. Like, oh yeah, they're seeing the old me. Is that their fault? No. Is it my responsibility to like show them who I am now? No. Everybody's on a different journey and a different path. But what we can do is say like, hey, inner me, inner child me, I know it's very triggering to be around people that still have these old narratives of us. It's not our job to like explain who we are, like the new us. I get you. This is where being lonely, where we swing back around to like, it doesn't matter what other people think about us and their perceptions of us, because they don't know us. Like those people, and I'm not talking about everybody, I'm not talking about soul tribe members or spiritual people or whatever. I'm talking about people that hold old narratives of you. It doesn't matter. You have to let that go. Because they don't see. They're not even on the same reality. Okay? This is where we really get like a split from like 3D and like 5D. They have their own behavioral patterns, their own triggers, their own trauma. Don't take advice from somebody who is not living the life that you want to live. That is like a solid piece of advice that has helped me, is if you aren't where I want to be, I'm not going to take advice from you, because you're not in the same reality track, right? So if somebody is like saying, well, why are you acting like this and why are you doing that and blah blah blah, and they're sitting over here complaining about their life and living in negativity and not looking at their behavioral patterns and not healing trauma, why would you listen to them? Like, let that go. And we don't need to hold judgment against them either, because there have been times where we have been in spaces of life where we're not at where we're at right now, and there is nothing that you can do to change somebody else. Nothing. There's nothing that you can say or do. That is their journey. You work on you right here. Okay? You work on shifting you, and the things around you shift. Either people stay or they exit. But what's aligned and meant for you will be there if you continue to work on yourself and your self-love, right? So I'll give you an example of that. So there's somebody in my life. We have a relationship together, not like a romantic relationship, but we had a really toxic relationship, like very, very toxic years ago. And I would blame this person all the time. And this person was doing the most, right? But I would blame this person all the time, like, this is why my life is the way it is, okay? And then I woke up one day and I was like, you know what? The only thing I can do is work on me, and then everything else will like fall in place and what's meant to. Now that person and I have a beautiful relationship with one another. Now, was it up to that person to also work on themselves, and they did. I had to go first because I had to be the leader and step out and be like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm just going to keep on working on me, and if you want to hop on that train, great, and if not, bye. Luckily, that person also, like, started working on themselves, and now we have a great relationship, right? Some people don't stick around. Some people cannot handle the new you. They don't like how you're responding to them. They don't like that you're not back in that drama or that negativity or talking about other people or, you know, like whatever. Well, if you have a whole bunch of people around you that are still like that, they're going to drag you. They will drag you back. You have to really look at, like, who am I spending time and energy with? Is it people that are uplifting me? Is it people that are pushing me forward? Is it people that are helping me be the best version of myself? Or am I continuing to participate in behaviors that are keeping me in this old version? Sometimes we do that as a people-pleasing tendency because we're like, okay, well, maybe they're not in the same space of life as me, but if I stick it out with them, maybe they'll get there. But what you end up doing sometimes is just keeping yourself down there with them. Like, I've been there too. We're like, oh, I'll just keep on, you know, pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring. But what I don't see on the other side is just me getting dragged back. Okay, so you got to ask yourself, are these equal energy exchanges? Or fear? Yeah, that's what we talked about too, of like being lonely. Well, if I let these people go, then I don't have anybody. Okay, it's better to have nobody and be solid in yourself and work on your own self-love and self-care. You will pull in people that are aligned with you. You will. Like, that's just like universal law. Like, yeah, there might be a space where like you have to be alone with yourself to recalibrate so you can demask and learn how to love yourself, right? But if you don't feel those things within yourself, you cannot pull in people that are like that. And this is an exercise that I do with clients sometimes, is get out a sheet of paper and write down 10 qualities that you want in a relationship with somebody. Not just romantic relationship, but like family. And you can't always just like exit family relationships. Like, I get that, but we can mitigate around like how much time and energy we're spending with people though. So romantic relationships, friendships, soul tribe members, whatever, right? Write out a list of 10 qualities that you want in somebody else. Maybe it's like compassion or respectful or values me or is a good listener or whatever that is for you, right? Funny, magical. Okay, so write that list out. That's your compass. That is reprogramming your inner children. Or not reprogramming your inner children, reprogramming your patterns and healing your inner children. Because when a new person enters your life, or even the people that are in your life right now, if they don't match up with that list, they don't need to be in your inner circle. That is a great indicator of an equal energy exchange as well. Like, whatever you write on that list. This is where we have to really catch our red flags, where we have rose-colored glasses on. Because we're empaths and we're light workers. So we give a lot of second chances and like, oh, they didn't mean it and blah, 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 you know, all this stuff. That is bypassing the red flags, and that's what you learn from childhood. You did not learn what the red flags are. This compass of these 10 things, if they don't meet this, they should not be with you. And I'm not saying that we don't all have like things to heal on, but having this list is a compass to, we are not taking less than this. This is what we deserve in a relationship. These are the things that we're looking for in people. It's helping change out your filter lenses. Instead of drama, we're looking for respect. Instead of arguing, we're looking for a good communicator. If you don't know what you're looking for, you get lost. If you do not have a compass, you get lost. Okay, now when we're looking at that list, you have to be the person that list is too. If you are not a good listener, you cannot pull in somebody that's a good listener. If you are not being compassionate, you cannot pull in somebody that's being compassionate. if you are not loving self and having positive thoughts, and I'm not saying we have positive thoughts all the time, but if you are not feeling that within yourself, you cannot pull in somebody. So this is a good checker too of where am I at in life? What do I need to be working on? Okay, because sometimes we sweep these things under the rug and we're just like, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. And then we wonder why we keep getting reiterations of it in our outer reality. It's because we're calibrating at that frequency. If we like drama, we get drama. If we participate in drama, that's what we get within people and experiences in life. And so I would challenge you to make this list. And sometimes it's very eye-opening, and sometimes like it's a real checker and it's not always fun, but it gives you a compass of this is who I want to be, or this is what I want to keep embodying. These are the personality traits that I want to have, right? And we can always keep working on those things. Like you can always be more confident, more compassionate, more self-loving. But if you look at that list and you say, I'm not this, and you want that in somebody else, you're going to be hard pressed to find somebody that will resonate with you on that frequency. Self-awareness is 90% of all transformation. Love that, Alyssa. And that is so true. Sometimes you just need to know what your triggers and behavioral patterns are. That's the first step in learning how to heal it. Like self-awareness is key because then you have a compass to work towards, right? Okay, so some other things that can help with people pleasing. One, taking advantage of, before we get into that, being taken advantage of. That's what I used to think all the time of, like, I'm being taken advantage of, especially like in my jobs where I would like give, and they would just keep asking and asking and asking and asking for stuff. And then I would build resentment, even in relationships. Why was that happening? Because I was letting that happen. It was a me problem. Because I would overgive, like give like 10,000% at everything, and then just let people like not give that back to me, and then just let that resentment keep building and building and building and building. But that's because I had a very deep internal fear of abandonment and loneliness, which I didn't realize was coming from childhood. So even though I'm safe, internally in my subconscious, it's like, okay, well, if I don't take on these other 10 extra projects, or if I don't do these things for my romantic partner, then that means that I'm going to be abandoned forever or alone forever. So do you see where like there's our adult conscious mind up here, and then there's that inner child stuff running in the background in the subconscious? And so we have to really like check ourselves and say like, why am I trying to do this? Is it because I actually want to, or is it because my child is scared inside of me of being alone or abandoned? Right? So this is where like radical self-love comes in and be like, listen, we don't have to do this. Like, I'll give you an example. So, oh, thank you, I appreciate that. So I was going to go to this function, and I really didn't want to go because I knew I was going to have to mask. And not like fully mask, and like I'm even working, you know, still on like demasking 100%, but like these people were not on the same wavelength as me, like at all. And so I was gonna have to like put on this like smiley persona. Okay, and I was like, that's exhausting. I do not want to do that. And there was an inner child within me was like, we have to go, because that's what's expected of us, and if we don't, then we'll get in trouble. Or somebody will fuss at us, or they'll think, well, obviously she doesn't like us, right? And that's not what it was. But in that moment, I had to tell my inner child, like, I'm making an executive decision that we're not going to do that. We're not going. We're not doing that. Like, I'm not going to subject you to going through that when we don't have to. And we didn't go. And was she freaking out a little bit? And my central nervous system was like kicking on and like going into fight or flight? Absolutely. But I had to keep telling her, like, it's fine. It doesn't matter what other people's perceptions are. Our mental health and our well-being is much more important than subjecting ourselves to a 2-hour situation where we're going to be in fight or flight the entire time. Like, you have to step in as that parent sometimes to your inner child to tell them what is more healthy of a thing to do, right? Yeah, central nervous system. Well, when I was a child, I used to get forced to go to like all these things, right? And this is before knew I was an empath or neurodivergent and got overstimulated and all this stuff. Now I'm an autonomous adult who doesn't have to do those things. A lot of times we get pressured out of like social obligations to do things when our inner children are like freaking out and we're forcing them to do it anyway when you don't really have to. Right? You have this like picture in your head of, well, what are people going to say? And what if they don't like me? What's underneath that, even deeper, is abandonment and loneliness. When you look at it in that perspective lens, you're like, oh, wait a minute, we're being a little too much right now. And not too much, because we want to like validate our inner children, how they feel about things. But like, just because I don't go to this party does not mean that people hate me. Or like, it doesn't even matter. If they don't get it, they don't get it, and that's fine. I am making more room and space for people who do understand me. I would rather not go to that party with people that I know that I'm going to have to be not my most authentic self, so I can save my time and energy to put towards like finding more things that are in alignment, right? Okay, so some things that can help. Boundaries. We've got to hold boundaries with people. Boundaries, a lot of times, are very hard, especially to hold with family members, because they think that we're trying to push them away. Boundaries are actually a self-love and a love for that other person. Because you're like, I love this relationship and you so much that I want to make it better. I want you to understand me and how I deserve to be treated and the respect that I expect, right? And so you're trying to strengthen the relationship. So when I first started holding boundaries with people, that was extremely difficult, because I was like, oh, they're going to hate me or they're not going to understand. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if somebody understands your boundaries or not. And this isn't talking about some like ridiculously high expectation boundary, right? Because that's something different. But if this is like a basic human, if somebody talks to you, sideways, oh, thank you. If somebody's talking to you like very curtly and that hurts your feelings and it triggers your inner child, for you to hold a boundary and say like, hey, you cannot speak to me that way. It's not you trying to push that other person away. It's you saying, this is what makes me feel safe, and this is what's best for my inner child. This is what we need. And if you can't respect that, then we need to shift how we interact in our dynamic. Right? I've had to do that multiple times with multiple people, and is it a comfortable conversation sometimes? No. With the people that you can't just like exit out. Like family members or, like whatever. If it's friends and they don't respect your boundaries, or your romantic partner doesn't respect your boundaries like that, it's time to shift that dynamic. Because there's no reason that somebody shouldn't do that. Now with family members, it's a little bit different because we just have like very deep like ties with them, and you got to change the amount of time and energy and how you interact with them as well. But you can't always just cut them out, so I get that. But romantic partners and friends are people that we are choosing to be with. Family's a little bit different. Who are you choosing to put your time and energy into, and how are they treating you, right? I don't like conflict, so those conversations are hard for me. Suggestions. One of the reasons you probably don't like conflict, again, is coming from like that inner child stuff. And so think about like the memories that you have. Like, why do we not like conflict? Where is that coming from? This is where inner child healing, very important, because if you have a 5-year-old inside of you, or like an 8 or 10-year-old inside of you, you have to step in as the higher self and speak to them, because I always get silence. You have to come in and speak to them and say, listen, I know that this is going to be a hard conversation, but this is going to help us move forward. It is going to help us love ourselves on a deeper level. It's going to help keep you safe. You have to talk to them and let them understand, I've got you. I know this is going to be tough, and it probably is, Okay, and we need to validate their experience as well, because they're probably petrified inside that somebody's going to scream at them or yell at them or hit them or something, and you have to tell them, like, that's not going to happen, and we're not going to participate in that. If somebody starts yelling and screaming, we're not going to stay in that conversation. We also can't perpetuate those things either. Like how you react and respond to conversations. Like if somebody's just like going off, there's nothing that you can do to swing that back in your direction. You have to get out of that conversation, because they are triggered. Two triggered people cannot have a conflict resolution. Right? So you have to like speak to that inner child within and help them through it, opposed to you just like reacting to that other person in that conflict. It's the intense emotional feelings and the way the body responds. Yeah, it's really intense. Like, especially when you're doing this like boundary holding thing, you have to, hey Lori, you have to have a, a decompress moment after these things happen. So like I've done that before, where I've had like very not fun conversations about boundaries or like whatever, and I have to come home afterwards and talk to my inner children, because can you always catch it in the moment? No. Like sometimes we're in the moment and we get triggered and we react. That's where we can do some like deep healing, where we come home afterwards or go in our room afterwards and have like a good cry, and then talk to our inner children about what happened. Like I've had that where I had a conversation with somebody and my inner child like completely took over. Like just fully back like old Brittany. I couldn't catch it. Like the ball was already rolling. Okay, like we were just like all the way in it. And then I got home and I was like, okay, we have to have a conversation. If you just push it down and you don't recognize what happened, like self-awareness, and you don't have that decompress moment is not the word I'm trying to say. Debriefing. That's what I'm trying to say. If you don't have that debriefing moment when you get home or after that, then it continues. But if you start catching it and start talking to the inner children, then you can rewire the stuff. Because you're like, when I had that conversation, I said, hey, I understand that you did that because we felt unsafe and we got triggered, but we can't do that. You have to let me handle situations like that. We are safe. Nobody's like actively trying to hurt us. We cannot like zap back into those old behavioral patterns. We have to do things differently, or else we will have more of those situations happen. So when you do that, you're stepping into your higher self and talking to them and helping them heal. Okay, the decompression was a message for me, because I need that after situations. You really do. You do. You have to ask yourself, why did this happen? Why did I act like that? Why did I say that? Why did I shrink into myself? Why did I get angry? Why did I get frustrated? Why did I get hurt? Because if you don't ask yourself those things, then it will just happen over and over and over again. And if you do it in the higher self lens of talking to your inner child, you're actually doing like energy work on yourself. You are pulling those root behavioral patterns and triggers out, because you're looking at them objectively instead of being like immersed into them. Okay, journaling is great. That's a great one, Carrie. Journaling, because then you can kind of look at a higher perspective, that you're not in it, you're looking at it. Right? Okay, so some more things are thinking about it before committing. So this one really helped me, is anytime anybody asks me for anything in the moment, I say, let me get back to you on that. I never say yes to anything initially. Can you do this for me? Can you do that? Anything. I say, let me look at my calendar. Let me get back to you. That has saved me so much like time and energy of not doing things that I don't want to do. For anything. Boss. Well, I don't have a boss now, but in the past, boss, relationships, like romantic relationships, partners, like friends, whatever, let me get back to you. Because then it creates space. And that's really great because some of us are still working through like that conflict thing and confrontation. And so if you can get in your own energy field before making an answer, then you can talk with your inner children about it and be like, how do we actually feel about this? Do we even want to do it? And if it's not a heck yeah, then it needs to be a heck no. Okay. But it's really hard sometimes, like when you're having a conversation with somebody and they're like, well, what about this? And how about we go here and do this and blah, blah, blah. And especially if you're neurodivergent or you're an empath, you might be in the energy to do that right now. But come, you know, a day or two from now, you may not be in that energy. And then you got to go force yourself to do something that you don't actually want to go do. So just take a pause. Feeling your emotions. So a lot of people bypass their emotions. They do not want to feel them because, you know, they're intense. Anger is really intense. Sadness is really intense. Happiness can be really intense too. Like if you're not, you know, used to feeling that frequency, or like what that even is. And so if you're not feeling your emotions, your body, like your physical body, is your compass. It's your intuition. So like when your central nervous system is kicking on, it's trying to tell you something. It's like, I don't like this, or I'm afraid of this. But if you don't feel that and dive around in there and see what's going on and why that's happening and feel into it, it compresses and becomes anxiety and depression. If you just stuff all that stuff down. If you learn to feel into your emotions and ask yourself like self-discovery and exploratory questions of like, why am I feeling this? What is this emotion trying to tell me? Then you can detach from them a little bit and let them flow through you, and then start to understand yourself a lot better. Like with that party example that I used earlier, my body, when I was thinking about going, was going into fight or flight. And I was like, okay, we're freaking out. Why am I freaking out? Then I talked to my inner child, and they're like, we're going to have to mask. And I said, well, why do we have to mask? You know, and like just keep asking. And then I got to the root of it, and I was like, well, we don't even actually have to go. But if I just like stuffed it down and didn't even look out of it, I just would have gone to the party and then just had an awful time and then just a whole mess. Okay. But you've got to feel in so you can listen to your intuition. Your intuition is like directly correlated into your physical body. Like your physical body will tell you before anything else does. Right? You ever had that feeling where it's just like somebody gives you an off vibe and your body kind of like reacts and you're like, ugh. But you don't have like valid reasoning for that person to like make you feel that way. Your body sometimes is trying to tell you beforehand. Like we don't always listen to those like extrasensory abilities that we have, right? And I know we've all had experiences where like we gave somebody or something the benefit of the doubt and then it bit us in the end. Your body was trying to tell you like, hey, maybe we shouldn't do that. And then we do it anyway, right? Okay. What you should be doing, a lot of people saying you should be doing this, you should be doing that. Well, what about this? And you even might be saying I should be doing this and that. Take should out of your like languaging. Like you shouldn't be doing anything. You need to be doing the things you want to do and the things that you like to do. And I'm not saying we don't have responsibilities and things of that nature. This is more in the context of like, well, I just should do it. You are undercutting yourself. You are not like living a life that you deserve when you do that. It's like when we use the word just, I'm just doing this and I'm just doing that. It's like we're not really fully embodying our confidence and power when we're doing things like that. What we should be doing. It's not allowing you to step into your full expansive version. It's making you smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And it's keeping you in a reality that's not actually in alignment with you. Because it's a reality of I should instead of this is what I want. And this is what I deserve. And this is what I enjoy. And this is what I'm doing. Okay. Okay, and the last one is the inner child. Healing your inner child is the most important thing when it comes to like people pleasing and this masking, perfectionism, procrastination, overgiving, unequal energy exchanges. Because if we really think back, every time we have something like this happen, like this behavioral pattern trigger cycle, where'd that come from? Ask yourself, where is it coming from? How far back can I remember in my memories? Usually you can pinpoint an age. And it's not coming from adulthood, it's coming from there. So if you are talking to a 5-year-old, 9-year-old, a 12-year-old, okay, and you're talking to them about people pleasing or abandonment or feeling lonely or processing their emotions or trauma, are you going to talk to them the same way that you would talk to an adult? No. You wouldn't even talk to them at different ages the same way. Like a 5-year-old doesn't have the same level of understanding as a 12 or a 15-year-old. And so if you are stuck at the consciousness level of that 5-year-old because of these people-pleasing things, you have to talk to them like a 5-year-old to heal it. Or you have to talk to a 9-year-old version of you like a 9-year-old to heal it, because you are at that consciousness level with that thing. Now, can you break away from that as the higher self? Yes. But that means that you have to come in as the higher self and really speak to them at that level and work through those memories with them. But that also means you feeling into your emotions. Because that 9-year-old is probably experiencing like so much hurt and so much sadness or anger or frustration. And in order to help them process through it, you have to process that emotion in your body. So like, I'll give an example. So I was having a conversation with somebody and we were about to go to this event together, and I got triggered, like so triggered. It was a younger version of me that was getting triggered, like full fight or flight, angry to like level 1000. Okay, so I went outside and took a walk and I said, listen, inner child me, okay, we have to go to this event right now, so we cannot deal with this in this present moment, but I promise you that when I get home, we will work through this together. Now, if you make a commitment like that, you have to follow through with it, especially if your child has abandonment or trust issues. If you don't show up for them, it's not healing it, it's actually making it worse. And so when I got home, I was like, okay, let's talk about what happened. And I like broke down and was like viscerally crying. And I was like, you can be as angry as you want. Like, let's do it. Let's be super angry, and you can scream as loud as you want in here. And we can pretend like we're, you know, like hitting a pinata, like whatever you want to do. Like, let's really, really lean into it. And I had to feel that very viscerally in my body. Okay, and it was not fun. Okay, and I've had other times when it was like super sad or like frustrated or whatever it is. But if you can just lean into it for a little while and feel those things, and then talk to that inner child within and be like, thank you so much for allowing me to feel that with you. I love you, and when we're done feeling that, we'll go do something fun. Because emotions are not forever. Emotions are channeling through you. They're trying to tell you something. If you are angry or frustrated or sad, that emotion is trying to alert you to something. And if you, it's just like a little kid, if you stuff it down, it will get louder, or it will condense and become anxiety and depression, or like illnesses. But if you take a second to be like, hey, what are you trying to tell me? It's fine that we feel this way. Anger's fine, frustration, it's okay. Let's feel it together, and then when we get done, I'm gonna hold your hand while we do it, and then when we get done, we'll go do something else. And I'm not saying that you won't have like a whole sad day or be, you know, angry, but having a sad day is different than having 6 months of sad days. And when you start to build a relationship with your inner children and your emotions like this, then they just start running through. We are just moving and grooving through these emotions. Like now I can just have a day where I'm like, okay, today's just gonna be a sad day. I'm gonna be frustrated and sad and upset, and that's fine. Because we're humans and it's normal and it's okay. Like, we are energy, emotion, we are emotions. we didn't have emotions, like, what's the point of being here? Okay? Like, to feel into things is to experience life. The good and the bad. Okay? So, but if you stuff those denser ones down, that's where we get emotionally and spiritually and physically sick. If you validate them, then they run through you. Just like this water back here. Okay? Instead of like condensing and becoming anxiety and depression that you're dealing with for 6 months, a year, or like me for like years of my life, because I didn't want to take the time to sit with my emotions or my feelings or my thoughts. I would just like stuff them and stuff them and stuff them and stuff them and stuff them. Right? And it's not fun at first, like learning to process your emotions and sit with your thoughts. Like, I'll just be honest with you, it sucks. Okay? Like, I'm not going to say this is like easy. This took me like years to get to where I'm at right now. That's why I teach these things, because nobody taught me this stuff. Like, nobody, like, I had to figure it out. Okay? I'm not saying it'll take you that long, because now, like, we're all a lot more, like, interconnected with one another, and we process information a lot faster, right? And we have more, like, social media wasn't, like, really a thing when I was, like, younger, or as prevalent as it is now. And it won't take you that long. It won't take you years, right? But it's not fun at first. Like, processing your emotions and being with your thoughts. But eventually you grow like this really loving relationship with them, where they feel like safe with you and can trust you. And like, you realize that you're not your thoughts and you're not your emotions. They're just like things that you're channeling and experiencing. And like, that doesn't mean that it's your life, that you're feeling sadness, that you're gonna be sad forever. It's just something you're experiencing right this second, and that's okay. There are more tools. There are a lot more tools too. Like, honestly, there are a lot more tools now than there were back then. There's a lot more understandings of things too. Like, there's a lot more information about being neurodivergent and childhood trauma, and being a light worker and an empath. Like, when I was, younger, there wasn't a whole lot of stuff about that. So it was more figuring these things out within. Okay, let me drink some water here. So what was everybody's biggest takeaway from today? That would be really beneficial to hear from my next chat. Also, if you're wanting to heal these things on a deeper level, like you're ready to do this inner child healing work and get all of this heavy, dense trauma out of your body and let go of like these self-limiting beliefs that have caught you in these behavioral patterns and triggers and cycles, and you just like feel stuck, like you're ready to make these shifts. I have a Lightworker expansion program that you can check out, and this is where we root up all this stuff so that you can live more confidently, and so you can step into your magic, experience more magic, and go after that life that you really want, or those people that you want in your life. So if you want to take a look at it and more information, you can go to the link in my profile, or if you're on YouTube watching this, it is in the description below. It is called Lightworker Expansion Program. And the type of inner child healing that I do is not just talking about your inner child experiences and doing like the mindset level work, but it's also taking you into the ethers so you can actually speak with your child directly. You can actually talk to that 9-year-old or 12-year-old or 15 version of you, and you become the higher self of them. Like, it's something I teach you how to do so you can take it with you for the rest of your journey, for the rest of your life. Okay, honestly, the step-by-step on how to talk with your inner child was helpful. Oh, great! I have a lot of videos on my YouTube channel as well that go more in depth about how to connect with your inner child. The debriefing with the inner child after a trigger. Oh, it's so helpful. So helpful to have those debriefs, because you cannot catch it in the moment when you first start. Like, sometimes you can, but it's a little more difficult. I don't want to say you can't, but it's more difficult. The more you do it, the easier it is to catch. Like, I'll be in a conversation with somebody sometimes, and like that older version of me starts to come up, and I'm like, oh, no. We'll talk about that later. Okay, like why we're zapping back there. But even now, sometimes I don't catch it in the moment, and then I have to do a debrief when I get home. Like an example for that. So I was at the gas station the other day, and I was trying to get a drink and this man was standing there. This is a people-pleasing tendency. This man was standing there and he was like blocking the thing, and he was on his cell phone and he was like texting. And you know when you can tell like somebody's gonna be there for a second. And I was like, hey, do you mind if I get that drink? And he was like, oh yeah. And he moved, and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. And then like I tried to like shrink myself and make myself small. That's a people-pleasing tendency. And when I got home, I was like, we need to talk about that. Why did we do that? Why did we feel like we had to apologize? And why did we make ourselves small? Like, we had every right to be there. We have every reason to take up space. That man wasn't upset that we asked him to move. Okay? But doing that repetitively and catching myself do that will get me out of that behavioral pattern. Because now I'm more consciously aware of it. So, like, if I'm asking somebody to, like, move, I'm not going to apologize. Like, you know what I mean? Like, don't be ugly. But self-awareness and debriefing go hand in hand to heal a behavioral pattern and a trigger. Okay, giving yourself permission to have feelings. Yes, love that. We are human beings. We are meant to have feelings and emotions. Okay, it was comforting to hear it's okay to have a sad day. Much better than having multiple sad days. That's the thing too. Like, life is like a pendulum. Like, it's a little difficult to experience like what bliss is, and if you don't have something to like backboard off of. Does that make sense? Like, how would you know what like visceral excitement is without having an experience of like the opposite emotion? Like, sometimes you have to have like contrast to realize like what you do want. Does that make sense? Like, okay, I don't like this, so obviously I need to head in this direction over here. Okay. Hey, Kate. I need to work on apologizing so much. Apologizing, that was a huge, oh my gosh. I used to apologize for like everything and things that I don't need to. Just all the time, I'd just be apologizing. And it's because it was a safety mechanism to keep because my inner child didn't feel safe. But it was also a way to like build a personality of like shrinking myself around people to like not dim their light. But it was also like an excuse not to step fully into my power. So there's like a lot of different like dynamics there. I still have to catch myself sometimes doing that too. All right. Okay, everyone. Well, I appreciate you very much for coming to the space. It was really fun, and we talked about a lot of different concepts here. Topics. I wrote down a few notes, and then we went way outside that. Can we talk about that next? Oh, yeah, maybe I'll talk about that too, like breaking down those like structures of like apologizing, because there's so many different like layers there to that. Okay, so again, my saying sorry a lot. Yeah, I'll make some videos about that too, because honestly, that's something that like still gets me sometimes, but I've healed a lot from, so I don't always remember. So we can definitely talk about that next time. Okay, so again, my Lightworker program, there's a link in my bio, and then on YouTube, there's a link down here in the description. And remember to like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Don't be sorry you take up space. Absolutely. We are meant to take up space. Okay. All right, everybody. I hope you'll have a magical day, and I will see you next time.